Welcome to the Pat White Show. Let's get into it.
This is Sparta!
Let me ask you a question. If you're a baby boomer, do you remember drive-in movies? Now, a lot of the Gen X and the Gen Zers, or whatever they call themselves today, have no idea about going to a drive-in movie. But I can tell you right now, as one from that particular generation, baby boomers, I definitely remember drive-in movies. Matter of fact, getting into drive-in movies, loading up a bunch of people in the trunk of your car and just paying for one or two admissions, and then once you get in, everybody jumps out of the trunk. Yeah, I did that. I can be honest with you. But there's a few drive-in movies, theaters that are still left in the world. Not many. There used to be a whole lot more when people went to drive-in movies and watch movies. It was just the way you could sit in your car, you could relax. Some people would back their cars in or pickup trucks and have a couch on them, and it just varied what everybody did. It was a family thing back in those days. Entire family went, set some up in front of the car, and my parents would just have us all sitting out there and the kids, and you give them popcorn or whatever and watch the movie, and that's what we did. That's how the family enjoyed something back in those days, 50s and 60s. Well, there are a few drive-in movies that are left. And interestingly enough, one of them is in this area of Indiana, the Garrett Auburn Drive-In. Well, the Garrett Auburn Drive-In, I remember driving by it many times and kind of whimsical looking at it. Oh, man, drive-in theater. But unfortunately, a windstorm came along, as we have them here in Indiana, and blew down their screen, destroyed it. Well, those folks decided to go public. Get a fundraiser going on and see if people would donate to rebuild the drive-in, which is what they did. People got out there and said, hey, let's see if we can't rebuild this drive-in, and they did. Well, now the footers have been poured, things are going up, and soon, I can't tell you when, but soon the Auburn Garrett Drive-In will be back in business. And my guess, they're going to be showing movies via digital. That's kind of what they do nowadays, rather than the old film strips. So the new stuff is coming. But it's fun going back into time and remembering what it was like to attend a drive-in movie back in the day. And now, the Auburn Garrett Drive-In looks like it's coming back alive sooner than anybody thought, with a new screen going up. Thought I'd pass that along to you. Something good happening right here in good old northeastern Indiana. And I thought you might want to know. See ya. Coming up next. Well, as you know, the presidential debate, the first presidential debate, is coming up the end of June. And recently on the Sean Hannity show, a number of folks in the Trump family were on hand to talk with Mr. Hannity involving Mr. Biden's condition for the upcoming debate. Now, I don't know about you, but if you watch the State of the Union special, Biden was in rare form, and I mean rare form. There's no other way to put it. He was fiery, he was explosive, he was pretty definitive. Well, now the concern is that that may be exactly the same thing they're going to have to do to Biden for the upcoming debate. And frankly, one of the people talking about that is Ron Jackson. Now, in case you don't know who Ron Jackson is, he's a member of Congress. He's Dr. Ron Jackson. And he was the physician in attendance to President Trump when he was in the office. So he is a knowledgeable MD who knows what things can be done to assist a president in being perky. Now, according to Dr. Jackson, he said, hey, Adderall, and there's a cup Provigil, I believe is another one. He knows the drugs that can be used and have been used in the White House. And let's be honest, some of those people in the White House probably have to do it to just stay perked up. Let's be honest about that. But here's the deal. They figure that Biden is going to have to be juiced up with something. Now, there are those who are arguing saying, oh, that's a conspiracy theory, that's nothing going on, Joe is perfectly fine. They can say it all they want, but the evidence exists, whether anyone likes it or not. In order for him to get through that debate coming up against President Trump, he is going to have to be sharp as a tack, and nothing can stop him. And the only way to do it is give him some help. And like I said, Dr. Jackson knows exactly what those things are used in the White House. Adderall, those are some of the names of the products, because they used to call him in the White House supposedly Candyman, Doctor whatever. But Mr. Jackson is a MD. He was the president's doctor. So I will give him a certain amount of credence on this. So there's what's going on, folks. Coming up in the election, or coming up in the planned debate. Could President Biden be on Adderall? Don't know. Be interesting to see exactly how he reacts. Something for you to consider with the debate coming up. Now you know a little bit more than you didn't know before. It's my job. That's all I got for you right now. See ya. Coming up next. All right, folks, I've got another doozy for you. This one comes compliments of CNN. Now, I'm not a fan of CNN, but saw an article in the Huffington Post. Yeah, I don't read that too, but I got to read a whole lot of stuff I don't necessarily want to read. This one is a gem. A CNN reporter was, quote, speechless. CNN reporter was speechless by Donald Trump, Joe Biden poll. And he said, holy cow, folks. Now, I want you to take a look at this. Here, take a look. On Monday, it says, the network's senior political data reporter, Harry Eaton, said he was speechless at the presumptive GOP presidential nominee Trump's surge from 7% support at this point in the 2020 to 21%, compared with Joe Biden's plummet from 86 to 70% at the same time. What's he talking about? Tell you what he's talking about. The number of black votes that are now coming to Trump. You heard me right, folks. He said, I'm looking for a sign that things go back to normal, but hey, it ain't happened. I'm seeing in the polls. We're careening toward a historic performance, he says. A Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we haven't seen in 6 decades. The young blacks are saying, wait a minute, we've been had. We've been bamboozled. We've been flip-flammed. We're going to vote for Trump. And the polling now shows it. And the CNN is aghast. So Biden's support from the black has gone from 80-point lead in 2020 to a 37-point lead. Do you understand that? Population support you and bypass the traditional Democrat support. Suddenly you got a big change going on. America's shifting, folks. Things are starting to turn. And now CNN's going, oh my God, I can't believe what's happening. I'm shocked, I'm stunned. And what are they going to do? I don't know. But I only got one thing left, folks. Only one thing left in the Democrats' quiver to use in 2024. Abortion and putting Hillary Rodham Clinton on the VP ticket replace of Kamala Harris. That, folks, is probably what they're going to live on. Let's wait and see what happens at the convention. All right, I want you to take a look at this column. It has to do with a writer from the Washington Post. Her name is Kathleen Parker. Kathleen Parker at the Washington Post is a very influential columnist there, and she has professed the Democrats could replace Kamala Harris with none other than Hillary as VP. Now, think about this. Kathleen Parker says, why not do it? Sounds like a good plan. Well, the problem is, obviously, Kamala is probably not going to want to go easy, but she may have to because Hillary is very important. And here's the deal. let's say something happens with Biden. If they put Hillary in as VP, she becomes exactly what she wants to be, is the vice president. That's right. Hillary Clinton becomes vice president. She's 76, and obviously she's younger than everybody else running, and she would be able to jump right in and take over the job, keeping America on track, according to Kathleen Parker. And that's exactly what she would do with her relative centrism. I'm not even sure what that means. But now, if Biden even then decides to step down during his second term, should he win it, there she is. She'd be right there ready to become president, which is exactly what she wanted back in 2016. Maybe a backdoor way of getting there, but that's exactly what she wants to do. And Kathleen Parker says that Harris is a significant obstacle to Biden's victory in November. That's what she says. Because she's lackluster. She's got nothing. But, and this is the important part, take a look at this. She says, more independents and disenchanted Republicans might swing for Biden if they weren't for the prospect of President Harris, which they don't want to do. They're not going to do it. But if it's Hillary, they may make the change. Not because of her sex or race or any other demographic category, but because of her competency or lack thereof. So there's what we're looking at, folks. Hillary could, in fact, take over for Kamala Harris, become the vice president at the convention, and imagine how that would look in November. Biden, Clinton, and everybody knows that if Biden dies, steps down, or whatever, Hillary's there to run the rodeo. Let's see what that happens, because I guarantee you that itself is a bombshell that could affect the 2024 election like nothing I've ever seen. You want to see interesting times? That, my friends, is going to be very, very interesting. That's all I have for you right now, but now you know. See ya. Coming up next. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever gotten mad at somebody and say, that person ought to be shot? That person ought to be hung. Somebody ought to put that person in front of a firing squad. Let's face it. Have you said that? If you haven't, you're probably one of the very few. Because we've all said it. You get angry, you want to say something, that person ought to be killed. Person ought to be beheaded. Person ought to be strung up to the yardarm. Oh, I think that's pirate talk there. Well, now the New Republic magazine has come up with a column that says, oh my God, Trump is threatening to execute people. Yeah, I'm not making this up. This is the column. I mean, take a look. Here's the column. Trump's ominous reaction to report he wanted to execute people. This is the story they're running in the New Republic magazine, saying he told a staffer he should be executed. Haven't you or me or anybody else, when they got upset, so that person ought to be shot, hung, put in a gas chamber, whatever? We've all done it. You get angry, you say things. That's what people do. That's human nature. Because you get, but now, would we actually do that? Well, probably not. Well, maybe for some people you might think about it. But the point being is this. Everybody does it. President does it. Wall Street does it. TV network people do it. Everybody says when they get angry about something, somebody should be shot, executed, hog-tied, or whatever. It's common language. But no, the New Republic's got to make a big deal about it. And they call it a bloodlust. The Trump wants to execute people. And now you have people going on TV saying, oh my God, they're going to put me in a concentration camp. Really? You know, here's the problem. They say, well, Trump's going to be seeking revenge. Revenge? The only time you'd be seeking revenge if somebody did something bad to you. I mean, really bad. Isn't that what revenge is all about? Revenge is getting back to somebody who did something really bad. So the Democrats are saying, oh my God, Trump is going to be seeking revenge. Well, that means the people who he's talking about are committing those same things that want someone to bring revenge upon them. Wrath of Khan, if you remember the Star Wars movie, revenge should be served on a cold plate, if you will. Cold. Well, is he going to do revenge on people? I don't know. Should he do it? Some would say, heck yes. But as far as putting somebody on TV and saying, oh, they're going to put me in a concentration camp, what nonsense. Bull crap. But as Trump said, hey, that person should be executed, that person should be shot, should be run up on the yardarm. I said it, and so have you. So there you go, folks. This is where they are. This is what they got left. This is all they got left. And folks, it's going to be an interesting few months coming up before the November election. You can almost count on it. That's what I'm looking at right now. Just thought I'd pass it along to you. Hope you're having a good day. That's it for now. See ya.
Coming up next. All right, what do you say we talk about the military and politics? Now, I'll tell you right now, I served in the military for a very long time. I retired from the military, and I was back in the days when it was Vietnam up through Desert Storm. That's the era that I served, 1970 to 1995. And back in those days, the purpose of the military is to kill people and break stuff. That's what it is. Whether you like it or not, that's what we do. And anybody that says anything different, no. Well, guess what? We now have generals in the Pentagon wanting to utilize woke, DEI, CRT. That's right. All of this is going on in the United States military. The Navy is now celebrating Gay Pride Month. Is it any wonder why the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all the services can't make their quota on recruitment? People don't want to join. And frankly, I tell you, I don't blame them. You know, I know one thing. There's one thing very particular. You never, and I'm going to underline the word never, you never do social network or social engineering. You never do social engineering of the United States military. You don't, ever. But that's exactly what they're doing. The generals, in order to stay in good stead in the Biden administration and keep their jobs, are having to go DEI and woke and everything else. Why do you think people are leaving the military? Because the military is turning into a bunch of wussies. You can't win a war with people like that. It's meritocracy in the military. It's the best of the best. You want people in there who will do the job, and you don't go in there to socially engineer them. But that's exactly what the Biden administration is doing. Exactly. The military can't make their recruitment goals. I mean, it's way down. You know what they're worried about in the military and the Army? Whether their tanks are electric. Are you kidding me? Whether the tanks are electric? And I can tell you right now, people in the other agencies, other corps or whatever, are saying it's getting worse. And people are getting out. And Pete Hegseth, who you see on Fox News, wrote a very interesting book. It just got released, where he talked to dozens of men and women serving, from the junior enlisted, the high-ranking officers, and they all said the same thing. They said they're walking on eggshells. All of them are. There's no accountability. The standards are being lowered, and they're eroding to conform to the woke Marxist ideologies. And the Democrats are pushing this in the Pentagon, telling the generals either you do this or you're fired. Folks, that's what's going on. Army, Air Force, Navy missed all their recruitment goals. If our military is into a bunch of wussies, folks, the bad guys will know it, and they will realize our people ain't ready to fight. And if our people ain't ready to fight, they will win, and we
won't. Figure that one out. Chew on that dog for a while. Now you know. By the way, get Pete Hepsick's book. Pretty doggone good. See ya. Coming up next. Well, I recently told you the state of Ohio was stuck in a kind of a situation that was going to force them to possibly say Joe Biden's name wouldn't be on the ballot. And so the Democrat Party said, well, what we're going to do is hold a virtual convention so we get Joe appointed as the presidential nominee before the convention even starts, because Ohio was not going to change their law. Well, apparently they were changing their law. Here's what happened. As you know, the Ohio is heavily Republican both House and Senate. Mike DeWine, the governor, and of course you have your attorney general who said, hey, Ohio law says that a name's got to be on the ballot 90 days before the election. The Democrat Party, unfortunately, fell inside of that 90 days, so they were in danger of not having Biden's name on the ticket. So Democrats said, well, we'll just have a virtual convention, appoint Biden early, and he's fine. That's done. Well, ultimately, the reason that the Senate, see, because you start in the House and then you go to the Senate, the reason the Senate wouldn't pass it because Democrats in the Senate, who are not the majority, said, hey, you got an attachment onto that bill that we don't like. What was the attachment? The attachment was that no outside money, outside foreign money, okay, they're very specific. Outside foreign money could be used in Ohio politics. Now, let me give you the example. Ohio politics was going through whether to have abortion, and a Swiss billionaire put a load of money into Ohio to convince people to change their constitution and put abortion into the constitution. I mean, he put a lot of money in, and that's what they say caused that result. So the Senate says, hey, no more foreign money coming in for local issues, state issues. Democrats said, no, we're not going to do that. So it was going to be up to the Democrats to DNC to have their nomination. Okay, fine. Well, as it turns out, the Democrats finally said, as much as we hate this, we're going to go along with this because we don't want to see Joe nominated outside of the convention, because they're worried that if he was, they couldn't get anybody else if something happened to Joe between now and the election time and into the convention. So they're still thinking that maybe it's going to be somebody else on the ticket. Just saying. So now you know. Mike DeWine signed the legislation, and they're going to allow Joe to be on the ballot in Ohio. Something's going on, friends. I'm just not sure what it is. And hopefully, soon, we might find out. That's all I got for you right now. Now you know. See ya. Coming up next. Well, I have a new little article for you. The United States Supreme Court just came out with a new ruling that struck down what the state of New York was doing. Now you're saying to yourself, well, what were they doing in New York that was so bad? Well, here's what they did. They told banks and insurance companies that if they do business with a particular company or organization, a nonprofit organization, a organization that's a national organization, so if you do business with those people, we aren't going to do business with you, or we're not going to let you do business with people. Basically, they said, you have any association with this particular organization, we are going to smite you down, and we're going to restrict your ability to operate. Well, that particular company took the folks at the state of New York to the United States Supreme Court and said, hey, that's a violation. You can't do that. You can't tell someone that just because who you do business with, that we, our organization, our state, if you will, is going to not allow you to do business. We're going to smite you down. Supreme Court looked at it and said, you know what? You can't do that.
So the ruling has just been issued by the U.S. Supreme Court saying that the practice of shunning one organization from banks, insurance companies, didn't want them to do any business with this organization. And the U.S. Supreme Court says you can't do that. Sorry, dudes, ain't going to happen. That organization was the National Rifle Association, the NRA. You see, the state of New York was telling the NRA businesses, insurance companies, and banks that want to do business with the NRA because they have members pay dues, buy products, what have you, and insure organizations said, hey, you do business with the NRA, we're going to smite you down. We're going to ignore you, we're going to neglect you, and treat you like a persona non grata. Supreme Court says, sorry, you can't do that. New ruling that just come out. Now you know what's going on in the world of politics, the world of business, banking, and insurance, and the world of what one state was trying to do to a national organization because they don't like their politics. Just saying. Now you know something's going on. At least the Supreme Court got this one right, regardless of what you think of the Supreme Court. That's all I got for you. See ya. Coming up next, what Newsome is trying to do is to call for a constitutional convention. This is where the states get together and they decide to what they want to do with the Constitution. You got to have a whole confab of at least 33 states that have got to agree to this. And I don't think 33 states can agree on much of anything in this country. But 33 states come together and decide if they want to have a new constitutional amendment. But here's the thing you got to know. If this were to happen, they could take any constitutional amendment that currently exists and change it. That's right. It's not one focus. They could change any of the other constitutional amendments if they want to. Now, in all of our constitutional amendments, always been through Congress. You got to have 2/3 of Congress and then like 33 states to go along with it. The last amendment, I think, was the 27th, if memory serves me right. And that's where they changed congressional pay, which says, well, one Congress cannot raise pay for itself. It has to be done by another Congress. That was passed in 30 years ago, I think, somewhere in there. But this one, well, Newsome says the state of California has already passed this legislation. So he is forming together what he says is 1,500 people that he is going to ultimately change into America to convince every state to form a constitutional convention because he wants to outlaw assault weapons, all sorts of new gun rules, registration, bans, you name it. He wants to do that in the 28th Amendment. Now, why? Here's his reasoning. He said, if we make a constitutional amendment, the Supreme Court can't do anything about what we do. See, the Supreme Court right now could say, hey, whatever you're trying to do, if it ain't in the Constitution, you can't do it. Or else it's reserved for states to deal with, like, abortion. So he said, hey, we get a constitutional amendment. Supreme Court's got to go along with it because it's in the Constitution. Outlawing assault weapons. Let me tell you something, folks. Newsome couldn't even tell me what the hell an assault weapon is. Describe one for me. Really? Well, it looks mean and nasty. Yeah, you're an idiot. No, this is what it's all about. And he wants to use this as a springboard to become the next president of the United States. Maybe not in 2024, we don't know. That could happen. But probably going to 2028. That, folks, is what's going on. California's Gavin Newsom, his next deal is a new amendment to the Constitution outlawing guns, criminals, assault weapons, whatever he wants to do, and make it an amendment to the Constitution. Just thought I'd pass that along to you. You think he can do it? No. But by golly, he is certainly going to try. That's all I got for you. Now you know what's coming up. You've been warned.
See ya. Coming up next. All right, I have a story from you about Robert F. Kennedy, who is running for president. Now, he's kind of the third party out there this time. We had Ross Perot back in the 90s against Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush. But now this time we've got Robert Kennedy. But here's something I want you to know. Here's something Robert Kennedy is promoting. He says that the U.S. government should no longer subsidize foreign oil and the things that they do to allow us to have foreign oil, and take away all the subsidies of the oil and make the oil companies charge us exactly what the gas costs. And his prediction is that gasoline would cost $12 a gallon. $12 a gallon. And he said that would force people to get electric cars. That's his proposal. Let's make people spend $12 a gallon for gasoline, and then they'll have to get electric cars because electric cars only cost 30 cents a mile, he said. He said a gas vehicle costs $4 a mile. And I'm thinking, okay, if $12 a gallon and you only get 4 miles to... I don't know what vehicle out there gets 4 miles to the... or you figure 4 miles, so that'd be 12 miles. I don't know how many vehicles are getting 12 miles to the gallon. I think most people out there are getting the 20s nowadays. Some places are getting a whole lot more. But, gee, electric vehicles cost only 30 cents a mile to run. And if we charge $12 a gallon for gasoline, people would be paying $4 a mile because their vehicle only gets 12 miles a gallon. I don't know what Robert Kennedy is driving. My guess is it's probably a big giant SUV, big Tahoe or big Suburban or something like that. I don't know. But I'll tell you right now that telling people they got to pay $12 a gallon and will convert them to an electric car is nonsense. Because it's not going to happen. People understand the cost of a barrel of fuel, and whether the energy companies are going to say, well, we're not going to take these subsidies from the government. Not quite sure what he means by subsidies, what that money is. I don't know. But that's what Robert Kennedy is proposing. Gas prices, he said, should be $12 a gallon, and the cost for electric cars is only 30 cents a mile. So he said you're going to get $4 per mile. Apparently your car gets only 12 miles to the gallon. Wasn't aware of that, but now I am. So, if you want to vote for Robert Kennedy, a little more information you need to know. He's in favor of $12 per gallon gasoline, so you can drive a 30 cents a mile electric vehicle. Just saying. Now you know what's going on. That's all I got. See ya. Coming up next. Well, here's a news story for you if you haven't heard about this. ConocoPhillips. Now, Conoco is an oil company. It's in Conoco gas stations. ConocoPhillips has decided to buy Marathon Oil. Now, Marathon Oil is headquartered in Findlay, Ohio. And that's a $17.1 billion deal. Now, including all the debt and everything that they're picking up, it's going to be a total of $22.5 billion. But so, ConocoPhillips is now buying Marathon. Now, I've been known to buy my gas at Marathon stations, and I don't know if all the Marathon stations that currently exist, and there's plenty of them here in Fort Wayne, are going to have to change their signs, their colors, if you will, and transition into a ConocoPhillips gas station. I'm not sure how that's going to work. More often than not, when one oil company buys another oil company out, you end up having to strike the old name and put in new signs. But that's what's happening right now in the world. Bigger oil companies who are flush with money because they're making money are buying smaller companies or smaller companies that have oil reserves, areas that they're drilling for oil. They're saying, hey, we're going to go to this place. We're going to buy this company, whatever it costs, and we're going to bring them into our midst, if you will. And by doing that, what happens is they get bigger.
and they got more sources to go get their stuff from. So that's what's happening, America. So now you know ConocoPhillips buying out Marathon Oil. Now, Marathon Petroleum, there's two different entities there in Findlay. They're just buying the oil company. So those service stations that you see as Marathon stations around everywhere may soon be featuring different signage. And that signage could say ConocoPhillips. Just telling you what's happening. But if you own that stock, well, you may make a few shekels. But if you're a Marathon fan, get ready. Change is coming. It won't be Marathon anymore. That's all I got for you. See ya. Coming up next. Well, here's a story that's probably going to catch your attention. It seems that down in Florida, people are concerned about the fact that, well, they may be legalizing marijuana in the state of Florida. And the biggest thing they're concerned about is the smell. That's right, they say it smells like skunk, pungent. And they say it smells bad enough. Some people are going to say they want to ban marijuana simply because it's a quality of life issue because of the smell. Well, turns out that scientists have figured out what causes that weird, funky, skunky smell of marijuana. I think they also say if you have certain beer and you let it get warm, it apparently does the same thing. It's naturally occurring in chemicals called terpenes. And apparently, marijuana has that skunky smell. Well, scientists said it's a molecule, and they call the molecule 321 MBT, methyl butyl, whatever it is. I don't know, outside of my capabilities. But the Florida is now putting it on the ballot. That's right, and Florida is not the only state in the United States putting recreational use of marijuana on the ballot. Turns out that South Dakota is doing the same thing. But now more states are putting it on the ballot to see if it's something that people in those particular states want. And it's going to be happening in Idaho, Nebraska, and North Dakota, and South Dakota as well. All these states are doing this. Now, will Indiana do this? I know it's been talked about. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But with Ohio doing it, you're going to have it right next door, 19 miles away. You've already got it up in Michigan. And heaven only knows. I can't tell you. I don't know. But I do know this. You got 26 states legalizing it, and in Washington, D.C., they're going to change it from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug, because it used to be with heroin and everything else. Now they're dropping it to a 3, which is sort of a minor thing, sort of like steroids, I guess. So is it possible it could happen in Indiana? I don't know. And that all depends upon the House and the Senate in Indiana. They're not exactly fond of doing something like that. But eventually, they may be forced into it. You never know. All the states are now legalizing it. 26 states and more are doing it. That's what's happening, folks. Not sure that's a good plan, because it could lead some very, very bad stuff down the road. That's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. That's all I got for you. Coming up next, let me tell you how bad things have gotten in retail, maybe how bad things have gotten in America as a whole. Well, now it appears that a store, TJ Maxx. Now, you're probably familiar. Well, if you aren't, chances are your wife or girlfriend certainly is aware of TJ Maxx. They sell stuff, well, inexpensively. Well, TJ Maxx is doing something apparently and a lot of other stores are also doing. They are equipping their sales staff with cameras. Sort of like the same type of cameras that you see on police officers. You know, the kind of mount there. They mount them on their vests. I'm not sure the ones that TJ Maxx is going to be using, but yes, they are equipping their salespeople and management with cameras to thwart shoplifting. And they said to keep employees and customers safe. I'm not sure how you reason the safe concept, unless
Say somebody goes into TJ Maxx and starts an argument with one of the salespeople about something or management about something. Well, camera don't lie. They get involved in a lawsuit. Somebody wants to sue. Guess what? Here's the camera footage. Let's take a look at it in the courtroom. Now, more often than not, if someone who's bringing the suit against TJ Maxx happens to see the video, because they have to be presented that, then they're going to go, yeah, maybe we ain't really going to sue on this thing. Maybe not. But I'm just making everybody aware. If you plan on doing some boosting at TJ Maxx and you don't want to get caught, or you don't want to have any problem, because now a sales associate could come up to you and say, excuse me, but you're putting stuff in that bag you ain't paying for, whatever. And they're taking video of you. So if you decide to do a bolt and run, they got an ID on you. They can see who your face is. Of course, if you enter there with a mask and a hoodie and whatever, that's a different animal. But right now, more and more stores are doing exactly the same as TJ Maxx and police departments. They're equipping their employees with cameras, video cameras, so they can get a great picture of you and whatever's going on. That's the way society is going, folks. It ain't pretty, but it is happening. Imagine that, being on candid camera. Or maybe you do something really stupid, they can send it into Funniest Home Videos. And you can really look stupid. But that's the stuff that's going on. TJ Maxx and other stores are now equipping themselves with video cameras to record people doing bad stuff. People, not like you, of course, but other people doing bad stuff. That's all I got for you. See ya. Coming up next. Well, today I've decided to give you guys a bit of a history lesson. And anybody who goes to the grocery store and shops would know exactly what I'm talking about. Because back in the old days, and I mean back into the 1930s, you went to a grocery store, you had to pick up like a basket. Those small baskets you get right now, you go in, pulls a few things, you got to lug it around. It's kind of a pain in the butt when you think about it. Well, back in 1937, a guy by the name of Sylvan Goldman, I don't know who he was, but they apparently owned a grocery store in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma called Humpty Dumpty. Never heard of the grocery store, never heard of Sylvan Goldman. But back then he owned this grocery store. And ladies would come to him and say, Sylvan, Mr. Goodman, we just can't get all the stuff we need in these baskets. They just aren't big enough. So he went back to his office and thinking, well, okay, what do I make the baskets bigger? And he thought, wait a minute, if I make them too big, the women can't lug them around. They're going to complain at me even more. So he got to thinking. And when you're in Oklahoma City, you got nothing else to do but think, or watching for the wind come rustling down the plain, or whatever Oklahoma City does. So anyway, he got to thinking, he was looking over, and he said, what a folding chair. He said, well, what if I put the basket on that folding chair? Of course, that's fine, but how are you going to get around? He said, well, put wheels on the bottom of the folding chair. That was his basic design. Took a folding chair, put wheels on the bottom, put the basket that he'd kind of figured out on the seat of the chair, and said, hey, I got a way for you, ladies. Only problem was this. The women took one look at it and said, hell no, man, that looks like pushing a baby carriage. I don't want to do that. And the guys said, hey, this ain't manly. No. So what he did was he hired a bunch of folks, brought them in, using the grocery cart that he designed, men and women, and people looked at it and said, well, I think that works. Got to give me one of those. Redesigned it, put it all together, and fashioned what we consider today the modern grocery cart that you get at your Publix or your Kroger's or your Marsh's or wherever the heck you shop. So there it is. That's where the grocery cart came from. In 1937, Sylvan Goldman had a problem, and that's how he figured out it is Humpty Dumpty grocery stores. By the way, he ended up selling a whole lot more stuff with the new carts.
became a very wealthy grocery owner. Just thought I'd pass that along to you. A little something for you to know about today in the world, because the bad stuff is going on. Try to make the rest of the world halfway decent. That's all I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya. Bye now. Coming up next.
All right, folks, what do you say we discuss the WNBA, Women's National Basketball Association? And actually, let's discuss one little lady playing in the WNBA, Caitlin Clark. Now, you're going to say, okay, fine, she's great, she's doing wonderful. Well, actually, according to ESPN, during last Saturday's broadcast, playing the Chicago Sky, the total home attendance for the Fever last season. Now, let's take a look. 2023, not this year. 2023, their attendance was 81,336. Now, that's over 20 games. It's an average of about 4,400 per game. 4,400 you got put in a high school gym. Well, in the first 4 home games, Indiana has seen 65,583 fans. That's right. The first 4 games. 65,000. Last year they had a total of 81,000. Now, against the Sky was another sellout. 17,274. And that's Indiana's total thus far is 82,857. 82,857 in their games. And last year they only did 81,000. The average attendance, folks, this season is up to 15,564. That's the most of the WNBA. Nobody's doing better than that. 7 of the 9 games that Indiana's played in have been sellouts. 17,274. But here's the problem. The other women of the WNBA are trying to take Caitlin Clark out, and I mean take her out. Why? Jealousy. Racism. Sorry. She's white and they aren't. And the fact that she's straight and they aren't, at least most of them. So they're trying to destroy her, and the league is finally taking a look at this and saying, hey, this ain't right. They're starting to find players, find teams, saying, hey, you got to stop this. She's the breadwinner. She's the big cookie. She's the Larry Bird that you didn't have. She's getting you the free airplane rides. So cut it out. Caitlin Clark, superstar in the WNBA, and the rest of the teams hate her. Why? Because she's good, she's white, and she's straight. Sorry, folks. That's the truth. If you don't like it, well, now you know how you feel. That's all I got for you. See ya.
Well, what do you say we talk about Caitlin Clark? Yes, the female phenom basketball player from Iowa. Turns out, now even the Chicago Tribune, big newspaper in Chicago, is completed an editorial on what happened to her in a basketball game against the Chicago Sky, where she was hip-checked. Chicago Tribune editorial says she was mugged. She was basically assaulted. And the Tribune says the foul committed by Chicago Sky guard Kennedy Carter was egregious. Outside of a sporting contest, it would have been seen as an assault. Even with a sporting contest, it was bad. Before the ball was even inbounded, Carter came up from behind Clark, shoving her at the hip and knocking her over. Lip readers simultaneously constructed a 5-letter epithet dancing on the Sky player's lips. She should have been ejected from the game. Now, that was the editorial of the Chicago Tribune. Yep, that was her editorial. Now, are other people piping up? Oh, yeah. Here's one for you. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg. She said, hey, it's basketball. That's the way basketball is played. And I'm going, Whoopi, when's the last time you were at a basketball game? You don't just walk up and knock somebody over before the ball even comes in and say that's basketball. But once again, idiocy prevails on The View. Whoopi Goldberg defends flagrant fouls and said, "Hey, it's basketball. Get over it." This is the way we're taking things in America. But sadly enough, and this is where I want to get into this even more. Pat McAfee. All right, Pat McAfee was a former Colt football player and very good football player, kicker, and he has a TV show, and his TV show I think is on ESPN, I believe. And if I'm wrong, someone will correct me. But he's got this TV show with all these other guys on there, and they got their desk pile with memorabilia and all kinds of stuff. And he ended up calling her a. Now you ready? I hate to say this. Pat McAfee called the Indiana Fever rookie a white bitch during an NBA riff that opened up on his show. That's what they got going on back and forth. Well, later on, after the show was over, he went online and said I shouldn't have used an expletive as a descriptor of Caitlin Clark. No matter the context, even if we're talking about race being a reason for some of the stuff happening. I have way too much respect for her and the women that put into the universe. So he said that about an hour after the show. And then I went to say, he said, my intentions were having a complimentary, just like the entire segment, but a lot of folks are saying that it certainly wasn't at all, wasn't complimentary. That's 100% on me, and I apologize. I said an apology to Caitlin as well. Everything else I said is still facts. The facts are, he said, this is about race. And when you figure out 75% of the people playing in the WNBA are black, a third of them are lesbians. Caitlin Clark is neither, and she's taking a lot of heat for it. And unfortunately, Whoopi Goldberg saying, well, it's basketball. That's how it's played. No, it's not. Just want to tell you what's going on and who's saying what. To one little young lady who comes in and makes things better for everybody in the WNBA. And she is insulted, shunned, and beaten up. Go figure, America. Go figure. That's all I got. Coming up next. All right, folks. The U.S. Olympics, well, not the U.S. Olympics, the World Olympics is about to start in a couple of months in July in France. Well, that's a big thing everybody looks forward to, seeing the Olympics, all the athletes come together from around the world. And for a couple of weeks, we sit there, watch it on TV, and enjoy it. And, of course, there's a lot of events to see. Well, let me tell you a little bit of something going in the background you don't know about. You see, at this year's Olympics, there will be no French fries. You heard me right. No French fries at this year's Olympics, at the French Olympics. No, it's they have in France, inside the Olympic Village, a 700-foot-long former electrical power plant that's at the heart of the Olympic Village. And this is the restaurant that will be serving all 15,000 athletes. No French fries. No foie gras. No hot dogs. None of that. Most everything is going to be, you ready? Vegetarian. That's right. They're being politically correct at the Olympics this year and making their food vegetarian for the athletes. Now, they're going to serve about 45,000 meals a day, 24/7, because the Olympic athletes are Olympic athletes. And they brought in these special chefs, big names. I don't know if they're, 5-star, whatever they are. And they're going to have things like sweet potatoes and hummus and cabbage pickles, beetroot falafel, grilled eggplant with smoked paprika. Boy, it sounds like a meal I want to go to. But this is pretty much a far cry from what the French actually eat. I have been to France, and I can tell you that, they use enough butter to cause thrombosis to an entire regiment.
That's France. But to have a vegetarian Olympics is pretty doggone unusual if you think about it. But they say that this is what the athletes need. This is what the athletes should have to maintain their strength, their endurance, and whatever makes them great athletes, I guess. So now you know that if you're thinking the athletes going there are going to be dining on Chateaubriand and filet mignon and having steak and French fries, ain't going to happen. Not in Paris. Vegetarian is apparently the way of the world. Well, if that's what they like, that's what they like. But I'm guessing some of the athletes are going to be going off the campus and looking for a pizza joint. Just some of my guessing. Not the big star athletes. I mean, the ones who, I don't know, maybe into certain sports that don't require a lot of physical stuff. That's not saying it's not physical, but certain, bow and arrow, rifle and pistol shooting, just general kind of things. Not track and field, not swimming, not boating, just regular guys. Maybe you want to have regular food. But no, Paris this year, get ready for vegetarian delight, because that's what's going to be going on in July in Paris. And now you know. See ya. Coming up next, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the dirtiest city in America? I don't know about you, but my guess would have been New York. I mean, the subways, the trash. I mean, if you've ever been to New York City, it was the dirtiest city I've ever been to. Well, new study has just been released saying that New York City ain't even in the top 10 anymore. Really? Turns out the dirtiest city in the United States is now Houston, Texas. I'm a Texas lad, but I've been to Houston. Houston's air is horrible. Houston's infrastructure sucks. And Houston has got cockroaches coming out the wazoo. So Houston is now the number one city in America to be the dirtiest. You know what used to be the number one city? None other than, you ready? Newark, New Jersey. Well, if you've ever been to Newark, you pretty well know why. But Newark is no longer number one. Now it's Houston. And New York didn't even crack the top 10. Like I said, they're number 12. But they do have trash and problems and pest problems. I guarantee you that. Now, how about some other cities? Well, Houston is not only a problem with the infrastructure, the air, and everything else, cockroaches. Top three cities for cockroaches: Houston, San Antonio, and Tampa, Florida. Yep. Now, if you ain't into cockroaches, you're into rats. Oh, I got three cities for you: Boston, Philadelphia, and Baltimore. They are the rat capitals of the world. So if you're looking for dirty cities, there they are. Turns out the cleanest city, one of the cleanest cities, not the cleanest, one of the cleanest, San Francisco. Spent a lot of money cleaning the place up. The problem is homelessness and drugs are the biggest detriment to going to San Francisco. So now you know what's going on. The good, the bad, and the ugly. The nicest cities in the U.S., Salt Lake City. And they are very nice, I'll give you that. But they violate the Safe Water Drinking Act, and so does Las Vegas. Las Vegas is number 19 overall as the dirtiest city because of the unsafe water. But in Ohio, let's be honest, Ohio's got the biggest problem with cigarette butts. Yep, highest amount of share of smokers in Ohio. And so they've been trying to stop it, but that's the biggest issue right there with Ohio. So if you wonder what's going on, well, gee, that's what's happening in America. Pristine cities, okay, let me give you a few. Fremont, California, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, they're pristine. Everywhere else probably sucks. Now you know what's going on. Bad cities, good cities. That's what's happening in America, folks. Now you know. Go forth and decide where you want to live. See ya. Coming up next. Well, what do you say we spend a few moments discussing fast food? Now, most of America eats fast food, let's be honest. One time or another, you go into your favorite fast food restaurant, whether it's McDonald's or Burger King or Taco Bell or wherever you happen to go, because, well, you're looking for something tasty and, well, what used to be cheap. Not cheap anymore. As a matter of fact, it's been discovered that you could actually buy a McDonald's, a French fry, and a drink for $18. That's true. Actually happened in a place called Darien, Connecticut. So the franchise owner said, hey, you want a Big Mac? You want, large fries? You want a drink? And Darien, Connecticut, he's going to charge you what amounts to is $17.59. Now, close to $18. President McDonald says, that's sort of exception because every franchise can charge what they need to cover their cost. But now they're figuring the ways to cover their cost a little bit differently. Used to be the price of a Big Mac was somewhere around $4.39. After COVID, it jumped up to $5.29. Not in all places, of course. Some places, it's even higher. But things have gone up. And now McDonald's is going to be getting rid of their beverage machines. The one where, you get the cup and you go over to the machine, you get what you want. And when you're thirsty, you get more. They figured out it's costing them millions of dollars a year. So McDonald's is going to get rid of those and say, hey, you want a refill, you're going to pay for it. That's what we're dealing with in the world, folks. All the restaurants. Now, it started with McDonald's, and I understand that. But you go into any fast food restaurant, and you're going to end up paying a whole lot more money than you used to pay. And now Americans are saying, you know what? It's too expensive to eat at fast food restaurants. That's right. They are saying it's too doggone expensive to go to a fast food restaurant. Sure, the restaurants are going to try special deals, $5 for this or whatever it is they're going to charge. But those are limited times, so they're going to last a few weeks. Then everything else goes back up. So, are fast food restaurants going to be in trouble? The word is probably yes. And with the way the wages are going up, they're going to be in a lot more trouble a lot faster than you think. That's what's going on in the world of fast food, folks. Because now Americans are saying, we really can't afford to eat at a fast food restaurant anymore. And that definitely affects people in the middle and lower income stratas. Little something you need to know. You're planning on eating a Big Mac tonight. Just thought I'd pass it along to you. Hope you're having a good one. See ya. Well, that does it for today's edition of the Pat White Show. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to follow us on social media for the latest Pat White Show for all the news and updates. And stay tuned for brand new episodes of the Pat White Show coming real soon. Like what you're hearing? Make sure you don't miss an episode by following The Pat White Show on Spotify. Just search for The Pat White Show, hit follow, and get ready for insightful conversations delivered straight to your Spotify feed. If you enjoy watching podcasts as much as listening to them, good news! The Pat White Show is also on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel now for visual content, behind-the-scenes footage, and full podcast experience. Find us on YouTube at the Pat White Show channel.